I mean, Caitlin to the ground, and that's a...
Oh, hell no, I know just who to call. I know just who to call for your ass.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a wild thug on the loose in Indiana. There's a thug that plays for the Phoenix Mercury, a goon named Alyssa Thomas. She goes by the name Alyssa Thomas. You need to go arrest this thug. She tried to murder a lady named Caitlin Clark on the basketball court.
Caitlin Clark was on the floor again, and this time, the image almost tells the whole story before you even know the score. A Fever player trapped underneath Phoenix bodies, a hand near the neck area, legs tangled, the ball loose, everyone fighting. And somehow, in real time, the officials looked at that chaos and kept the game moving. No whistle, no immediate punishment, nothing.
Tonight is where I draw the line. WNBA, if you do not review what happened to Caitlin Clark, I am going to non-stop talk about this until the end of my days. The Indiana Fever go down in their rematch against the Phoenix Mercury. I don't even care about that because much bigger things are at play. It was expected to be a big game. After the melee that ensued a couple of days ago between the two teams, multiple texts were called, ejections. It was just really high tense. You could cut it with a knife. Ergo, I expected this game to be called very tight whistle. Any player hits the floor, watch like a hawk. And in my lives, I do sometimes talk about there are two players in the league that I don't particularly care for, but I never want to say who they are because I want to be able to call their game fairly and acknowledge how good they are on the court.
But the next day, the WNBA had to come back and admit what fans already saw. Alyssa Thomas was given a flagrant foul too and a one-game suspension for making contact with her fist to Caitlin Clark's throat area.
Alyssa Thomas has accomplished a lot in 13 WNBA seasons. The six-time All-Stars scored almost 5,000 points, grabbed nearly 3,000 rebounds, and dished out just shy of 2,000 assists. But now, AT checks a less glamorous statistical box. For the first time, she'll serve a one-game suspension. The W announcing that today because of Thomas, quote, recklessly making contact with her fist to the throat area of Caitlin Clark during last night's Mercury win over the Fever. There was no foul called, but upon post-game review, the league office classified it as a flagrant 2. So Thomas will be out for Saturday's game in Toronto against the Tempo.
And that is why this Fever versus Mercury game has turned into something much bigger than a 2-point loss. Phoenix won the game 111-109, but that is not what people are talking about. They are talking about Caitlin Clark leaving with a back injury. They are talking about Stephanie White exploding after the game. They are talking about another no call. And most of all, they are asking the same question again.
Alyssa Thomas driving her fist into Caitlin Clark's neck. The ball is out of the play at this point in time. All right, so I don't care who it is. You know, at the minimum, you know, it's a flagrant 2. I think it warrants a suspension, especially because of, you know, when you do factor in the context and the history. Because let's be real about it.
How many times does this have to happen before the WNBA actually protects its biggest star? Because this did not feel like a normal hard-fought game. It felt like the latest chapter in a season where Clark gets grabbed, bumped, hit, knocked down, stepped over, and then somehow she is the one who gets called emotional when she reacts. And that is the part fans are furious about. This game already had tension before tip-off. Indiana and Phoenix had just played 2 nights earlier in a game filled with technical fouls and drama. Clark picked up her 5th technical of the season in that matchup, and the Fever tried to get it rescinded, but the league let it stand.
They fight till the end. And there's a push. Whoa. There's a push and a talk by. Whoa. There's another push.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a competitive group, a veteran group. They've been around this for a long time. They're not afraid of the smoke.
Up the tech tonight, 5th of the season.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I got a technical for clapping. So, like, if we should all just go on the calendar now and pick a game that I'm going to be suspended for if I'm going to get technicals for clapping. I asked Gerda. Gerda said that I got a technical for clapping. So if any technical should be taken away, it should be that one. If it's truly for clapping, that's what they said they gave it to me for was for clapping. So it's just ridiculous. I don't understand it at all.
So even within that, though, how aware do you have to be of the 8 technical fouls?
I mean, I'm going to play with emotion. I'm going to play with passion. And if they're going to give me a technical foul for clapping, then so be it. That's their choice. And the league can come back and review that play. And I'd love to hear what they say of the reasoning of why I got the technical foul in that situation and why other players on their team didn't get a technical foul in that situation. If anything, split it. Okay, fine. Everybody gets a technical foul. That wasn't how they were handed out. So I'd love to know. But obviously, that's what I went to Gerda and said. I said, why'd you give me a technical foul? She said, because I was clapping and instigating. I said, okay, then you just don't like competitive basketball. And that's just facts. That's just reality. So disappointing from them.
So everyone knew the rematch was going to be physical. But what happened in the second quarter crossed a line for a lot of people. Clark hit the floor while battling for the ball. Alyssa Thomas ended up over her. Then came the contact around the throat area. It was not some tiny brush that only fans in slow motion noticed. It was the kind of play that instantly made people rewind the clip and say, wait, how was that not called?
After such a dirty play in this game, Alyssa Thomas needs to be checked. And I am absolutely not the only person that feels this way. I went on social media after the game, and it is like hellfire calling for the WNBA to review this play. Caitlin Clark goes down. Alyssa Thomas goes down, knees her in the groin on the way down, a known area of injury for Caitlin Clark. Okay, maybe that wasn't completely intentional, didn't look great to me personally, but here's where it gets really wild. Alyssa Thomas has a fist on Caitlin Clark's arm. She has 2 fists. She slides it down, pins Caitlin down by the throat, finally gets up, and she steps over her. That step over told the entire thing. It was dirty. It was intentional. Absolutely should not go undiscussed. WNBA needs to review.
And that is exactly the issue. The officials did not call it live. The league only acted later. So the question becomes, what good is a punishment the next day if Caitlin Clark is already hurt, already out of the game, and Indiana already lost? Because moments later, Clark had another scary play. She went up for a 3, got fouled, landed awkwardly, and started grabbing at her back.
Caitlin Clark gets kneed in the groin, punched in the throat. Alyssa Thomas puts all of her body weight on her to stand up after falling to the ground, punching her and kneeing her in the groin. No foul gets called, they play on. Caitlin Clark shoots a 3. A player on the Phoenix Mercury gets into her landing space. Caitlin Clark comes down on her foot. No flagrant called. Caitlin Clark comes up, holding her back. The referees are terrible. But the worst part of all of this, Caitlin Clark got kneed in the groin, throat punched, landing space, no call, and Stephanie White sat there on the sidelines with her arms crossed, tweaking, sniffing, twitching away.
She still made the free throws because that is what she does. She tries to play through everything, but eventually her body could not ignore it anymore. She left in the third quarter and did not return. And here is what makes it even worse. Clark was actually cooking Phoenix before all of this. She had 13 points and 3 assists in the first quarter. Indiana scored 35 points in the opening period. The Fever were flying. The offense looked sharp. The crowd was alive. Clark finished with 19 points and 8 assists in only 20 minutes. That is the part that gets lost in the drama. She was not struggling. She was not being shut down. She was controlling the game.
I am disgusted. The Indiana Fever just lost to one of the most trash teams in the league. The Phoenix Mercury won 5 games all year. They suck. They suck. They don't have enough talent. Just come on, man. Stephanie Bonehead White getting in Caitlin Clark's way, sitting her out the last 2 minutes of the first quarter, sitting her out the last 2 minutes of the second quarter. Caitlin Clark was on a heater. This should have been another 30-point double-double or a 40-point game, but Stephanie White couldn't get her boneheaded ass out the way, along with the thuggery and the brutal attack by the Phoenix Mercury. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. Kelsey Mitchell plays all but 1 minute in the first half. It's 20 minutes and a half. Kelsey Mitchell plays 19. Caitlin Clark only playing 14. Like, what is going on? Why are you benching Caitlin Clark? You are clearly trying to minimize her stats. Caitlin Clark has 16 points and like 16 and 8 in the first half. 16 points and like 7-8 assists in the first half.
Then the physicality kept building. The whistles did not match the contact, and suddenly the biggest player in the league was in the locker room while the Fever were trying to survive without her. Kelsey Mitchell went crazy with 30 points. Aaliyah Boston had 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Indiana still fought until the final seconds. But when you lose by 2 points, every missed call matters, every possession matters, every superstar minute matters. And the Fever did not just lose a close game, they lost Caitlin Clark in the middle of it. That is why Stephanie White sounded so angry after the game. She was not just complaining about one whistle, she was talking about a pattern. She brought up the fist near the throat. She brought up the landing space on the three-pointer. She brought up the fact that the league knows what just happened 2 nights earlier, yet the same kind of chaos kept happening. And she said what a lot of fans have been saying all season. Clark is not being officiated like everyone else.
You're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago? And that still happens? Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And the reckless closeout that they actually reviewed, and the foot still comes down on top of the defender's foot that wasn't upgraded? Absolutely disrespectful. We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
Steph, do you think that the league needs to look into how Caitlin Clark is defended or how she's officiated going forward?
I mean, we spent all offseason looking at officiating. All offseason. And I still say the one thing that we keep asking for is consistency. She is not called the same way everybody else is called.
Now people can argue about why. Some will say it is because she is a rookie-turned-superstar who gets extra defensive attention. Some will say it is because teams are trying to be physical and make her uncomfortable. Some will say the refs simply miss too much. But at some point, the reason matters less than the result. The result is that Caitlin Clark keeps ending up on the floor. The result is that fans keep seeing dangerous contact go uncalled in real time. The result is that the WNBA keeps having to clean up the mess after the game instead of controlling it during the game. And the result is that every Caitlin Clark game now has this dark cloud over it. Not just can she win, but can she get through the game safely?
She just needs more consistent help. But as for the refs, I want smoke with all the WNBA refs, bro. Like, they need to be hit with a RICO. They need to be investigated. How are they allowed to control the game the way that they do? They calling fouls that aren't fouls. Not calling fouls when they should be calling fouls. Making up fouls. Like, how are they allowed to do this and just control the outcome of the game? They got to be on FanDuel, like, making money off this shit or something. Cause
that is a terrible place for the league to be, because Caitlin Clark is not just another player. She is one of the biggest reasons casual fans are watching. She sells tickets. She drives ratings. She creates viral moments. She makes people who never cared about the WNBA suddenly stop and pay attention. And that is what makes this so hard to understand. The league has a player who brings new eyes to the sport, and instead of the conversation being about her passing, her logo threes, her rivalry games, or her ability to lift Indiana, the conversation keeps becoming about whether she is being protected. That is bad for Clark. It is bad for the Fever. And honestly, it is bad for the WNBA. Because fans do not want a soft league. Nobody is asking for Clark to play in bubble wrap. Basketball is physical. Stars get trapped. Defenders get into them. Playoff-style games are supposed to be intense. But there is a difference between physical basketball and dangerous contact. There is a difference between tough defense and a hand around the throat area. There is a difference between making Clark work and letting the game turn into a survival test. That is why this image is so powerful. It is not just a still frame from one loose ball scramble. It represents the whole argument. Caitlin Clark on the ground. Phoenix players over her. No whistle in the moment. Then the league stepping in after the damage is done. And that is the story fans are going to keep talking about. Not because Clark fans want special treatment, but because they want fair treatment. They want the same protection any superstar should get when contact gets reckless. They want officials to see the obvious stuff live, not wait for Twitter to explode. They want the WNBA to understand that this is not just a fever problem anymore. This is a league problem because every time something like this happens, the reaction gets bigger. The clips spread faster, the anger gets louder, and more people start believing the league has no idea how to handle the superstar it has been handed. So now the WNBA has a choice. They can treat this like a one-game suspension and move on. Or they can admit the bigger issue. Caitlin Clark is changing the league. But if the league keeps letting games around her turn into this, then the story will stop being about how great she is. It will become about how much punishment she has to take before somebody finally says enough.
I'm sick of watching Caitlin getting attacked. If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things are going to get ugly real fast.
One of the greatest shooters who has ever lived watched Caitlin Clark play basketball and basically described watching himself.
Her range, her three-point shooting overall, her flair for testing her range every night and knowing that the other team's going to try to take it away. And she's fearless. No shot is a bad shot, and when you can shoot it as well as she can, she just adds another element of surprise that you can't really game plan for because it's so kind of just unseen. And once she crosses half court, she's within her range. It's always a threat. Biggest thing is how she balances that and her playmaking ability to get everybody else involved.
No fake mic grab, no live TV meltdown, no made-up drama. The real story is much better than that, because when Stephen Curry talks about Caitlin Clark, he does not sound like someone just being polite. He sounds like someone who recognizes part of his own game in another player. And that matters, because Steph Curry is not just a great shooter, he is the shooter who changed basketball forever. He changed where defenders have to pick players up. He made the logo 3 feel normal. He made every kid in a gym think they could pull up from ridiculous range. So when Curry looks at Caitlin Clark and says her release is basically identical to his, that is not just a nice compliment. That is a basketball earthquake.
Somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine. And then her just confidence, you can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from, the range, the confidence, the flair, like she's a performer.
Think about what he is really saying. He is not only talking about the distance, he is talking about the speed, the rhythm, the confidence, the way the ball is gone before the defense can even react. That is what makes Clark different, and that is why the Curry comparison hits so hard, because nobody understands that kind of shooting better than Steph Curry. He knows how hard it is to shoot from deep. He knows how hard it is to do it under pressure. He knows what it feels like when defenses are built around stopping you before you even cross half court. So when Curry praises Caitlin Clark, he is not just saying she can shoot. He is saying, I know exactly how hard this is.
There's been a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark being an amazing shooter and just someone we're watching. Have you spoken to her? Do you know her? What do you think?
I mean, I've been watching from afar and understanding just how much of a power she is out there on the court. The cool part is the way that she plays and her range and the level of difficulty on her shots is obviously a very close comparison to the way that I play.
I was going to say Caitlin Clark's been compared to you.
Yeah, but I think it almost robs her of like the rest of her game because she's such a good floor, she has her overall, floor game. She's racking up, close to triple doubles every night, and her shooting ability is, it's her superpower, but the rest of her game is as polished as that. And so it's must-see TV. I love what it is done for, women's basketball in terms of when she shows up, the seats are filled.
And that is why his words carry more weight than almost anyone else's. Analysts can debate her. Critics can call her overrated. Talking heads can argue about hype, ratings, attention, and media coverage. But when the greatest shooter ever looks at Caitlin Clark and sees something familiar, people should probably listen, because Caitlin Clark is not dangerous only because she can shoot from deep. She is dangerous because the threat of that shot changes everything. The defense has to stretch, help defenders hesitate, passing lanes open, teammates get easier looks. The whole floor changes because one player has to be guarded from places where most players would never even think about shooting.
He was shooting, letting that ball fly. I watched a little bit. but then I had to do some treatment. So, but it was amazing. I watched the first half, but she got to go in the second half, so I didn't watch that. She could shoot it better than me.
That is the Curry effect, and Clark has her own version of it. That is the real connection between them. Not fake drama, not a viral lie, not some headline about Steph grabbing a microphone. The real story is two players connected by the same basketball idea. Range changes everything. Confidence changes everything. Fearless shooting changes everything. And the respect goes both ways. Caitlin Clark has never hidden how much she admires Steph Curry. She has talked about loving his game. She has talked about the influence he had on her style. And when she was asked which NBA player she would want to play one-on-one, she gave the perfect answer. She basically said she would get killed by every NBA player, but she picked Steph Curry anyway.
If you could play one-on-one with anybody, current, not current, who would it be?
That's a fantastic question. Current or not current?
NBA, WNBA.
Well, like, I would get killed by every NBA player, but like Steph Curry.
You would play one-on-one with Steph Curry. I thought you were gonna say Peyton Pritchard.
That's great. Peyton Pritchard. Yes.
That answer is funny, but it also tells you the truth. Curry is not just another superstar to her. He is the blueprint.
You know, I grew up watching Steph. Like, to me, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But I was also a kid that grew up getting to watch him, and I think he's really changed the way basketball is being played. Maybe at times, me and him both, like, kids shouldn't always just go and chuck a bunch of threes, but that's what makes the game so exciting and what he's been able to do throughout his career. He's really changed basketball, and, you know, everybody that's ever met him knows how good of a person he is too. So it's cool to be here. Like, he's somebody I certainly idolize.
The freedom to shoot from anywhere. The freedom to turn a normal possession into a moment. The freedom to make the crowd stand up before the ball even leaves your hands. That is what Clark grew up watching. And now Curry is watching her do her own version of it. That is why this is bigger than a compliment. It feels like basketball lineage. Steph Curry changed what was possible in the men's game. Caitlin Clark is helping change what is possible in the women's game. Different leagues, different journeys, different pressure, but the same kind of gravity, the same panic from defenses, the same feeling that something wild can happen the second the ball touches their hands. And here is my hot take. The Steph Curry cosign might be the most important endorsement Caitlin Clark has ever received. Not because Curry is famous, not because it makes a good headline, but because he is the perfect person to judge the exact thing that makes her special. When a random commentator says Clark has deep range, that is an opinion. When Steph Curry says her release reminds him of his own, that hits different. That is the master of the craft recognizing the same pattern in someone else. And that makes the overrated debate look lazy, because people can argue about the attention, they can argue about the media, they can argue about the fan base, but the basketball is right there. The range is real, the passing is real, the pressure she puts on defenses is real, and now the greatest shooter ever has basically said he sees it too. But let's be clear, praise from Steph Curry is not a trophy, it is not a championship. It is not an MVP. It does not mean Caitlin Clark has already reached the top. She still has to build the rest of her career. She still has to keep improving. She still has to handle the traps, the double teams, the physicality, the bad nights, and the pressure that comes with being the biggest name in the league. Curry's praise is not the finish line. It is a signpost. It tells you what her ceiling could be. It tells you that what people are seeing is not imaginary. It tells you that one of the smartest shooters in basketball history watched her and understood why she feels different. So forget the fake mic grab story. The real Steph Curry and Caitlin Clark connection is better. It is about respect, influence, skill, and one revolutionary shooter tipping his cap to another player who is changing the way the game is watched. So now I want to know what you think. Is the Curry comparison fair, or is the bar still too high? And at the same stage of their careers, who was the better pure shooter? Drop your answer in the comments.